Welcome to Bringing Jesus to a Broken Heart. The next part series is going to be on the real faithful housewives. And with me today in the studio, we've had her once before, is Dr. Susanna Cooperman. She has been practicing as a neuropsychologist for 25 years, and she has her practice that is located in Huntington, New York. So we want to welcome Susanna today to Bringing Jesus to a Broken Heart.
Thank you.
Susanna, since we feel that you're the expert, and you know that marriage today is in crisis in our society, and I wanted to ask you, since this is a Catholic program, that we want to talk about it from a very strong clinical perspective, but we also want to talk about it from the sacrament of marriage and what that would mean. So from your perspective, what do you feel a healthy marriage is constituted by?
Okay. Well, for a marriage to be healthy, it has to stay alive and vibrant. And in order to do that, the couple has to have some cognitive flexibility, meaning they have to be tolerant towards each other's evolution, where they go emotionally and where their interests go. And they have to have conversations about issues that come up, at the same time adhering to an ethical code of conduct, meaning live the 10 commandments and treat each other with respect.
Well, first of all, you defined what that meant, and I think for a lot of people listening, that terminology is not very familiar. So that was really a good concept to bring into the show and what that means. So in order to have that flexibility, what do you think the partners need to recognize in each other to keep that going?
What you need to recognize in the other person is that each person is a truly unique individual with their own journey, with their own passions and interests. And it is very important to listen to the other person, to respect the other person's wishes and needs and wants. And as challenges come up in a marriage, such as a severe medical condition, loss, financial strains, it's very important to sit down, to be tolerant of each other's opinions, needs, wants, and really discuss openly where to go next, and to respect each other in what each person thinks would be the best way to handle certain conflict.
And I think what you just brought me to was a vision of someone exchanging vows at the altar. So what the vision that I'm seeing is that when two people are at the altar, they're exchanging vows and they're saying to one another, they're making a commitment. And I think that in our society, we don't stretch that to that point. We bail out before them. Someone gets sick, we can't handle it. Someone has lost their job, well, I need somebody who makes more money. Someone feels that they can't be able to be the provider, maybe someone will resort to infidelity and think that they can find that in someone else or somewhere else. Now, as counselors, we know that coupled with the problems they already have, when the other spouse finds out that someone has cheated on them and has been in the area of infidelity, now we have that issue of trust. To rebuild that in a marriage is extremely difficult, because once trust is broken, I believe that's the foundation of a marriage. It's based on trust, and I believe that everything else is built from that. Just like when we look at the theorists, right? Everything starts from the moment of trust with our parents and our upbringing and in our childhood development. So we bring that and carry that into our marriages. And then when one of the spouses breaks that, we are now resorting to where we were maybe when we were children and had abandonment issues. So if you had those abandonment issues and now you've been abandoned in a marriage, we have really some work to do here. So it's not as easy as we think it is just to go into infidelity. And the reason I bring this up, because I have entitled this, the a real faithful housewives. And when we talk about women who are professionals, and when we talk about women who are Catholic, and who, not by name, I'm talking about living for Christ and putting this marriage down at the altar, they are committed. They're committed to Jesus. They are committed to that sacrament. And the beautiful women that we'll have on the shows coming on, they're going to talk about their struggles. Catholic women have them, and Catholic marriages definitely have them. But the difference with a lot of them is that they say to each other, we made this commitment, we made the vow, and no matter how hard it is, we're going to press through to the end. And that's what this show is about today. It's about pressing through to the end and really believing in that sacrament of marriage. Now, this is my view on it. I believe that when you make that commitment, and we did a show on this before, that a wonderful gentleman said there's 3 people in the marriage. It's Jesus and the couple. It's not just the 2 of you. So when the 2 of you, it's almost like a pyramid. And when the 2 of you look and point up to Jesus, when there's a difficulty, Jesus is able to resolve and help resolve that issue. Because now you're both going to the person who instituted marriage. And Jesus himself called himself the divine counselor. So you will get spiritual insight and strength from that perspective, the Catholic perspective. Which is going to lead me into the next question, Dr. Krugerman. When there is a couple that believes in that, but they have great conflict, and they're trying to balance the fact that I do believe in this, but this is a miserable marriage, and it's very difficult. Very, very difficult. You must see a lot of people who come in that really want to withstand this sacramental promise. How do you help the couple with the conflict of wanting to live out the promise and yet feel that here in the moment they really can't? How do you help a couple work through that?
Well, I'm a psychoanalyst, so I always look at how people project onto each other, meaning you grew up in a family where maybe your parents didn't have the best marriage, or you had an abusive parent, and then you internalize that experience, and then it gets triggered when you start your own family and you repeat that pattern. And so when you look at your spouse, you don't really see the spouse for who or she truly is, but you see the parent that hurt you. And then all your feelings get unloaded onto that person, whether they deserve it or not. So it's very important in psychotherapy to tease out, what am I projecting onto the other person, and what is the other person truly doing to me or feeling or saying. And in order to get there, you really have to practice good communication. Communication is the number one skill you need with cognitive flexibility to really work through issues. When both spouses are also practicing, of course, you can go to church together, you can see a priest together, you can go to religious retreats together. But in terms of my job as the psychoanalyst, to have a couple come every week and really look at what's going on and communicate your feelings in a pure way without blaming and expecting the other person to be a good enough spouse and not have to be perfect is an important step. Infidelity, as you mentioned before, is never a good solution, because then you just stop the development. Nothing gets resolved by you going outside of the marriage. And you might have some short-term gratification, but ultimately the problem that you never resolved will come back to haunt you. And then you might either repeat it in the next relationship, or it will make your marriage unravel more and more.
And I think that infidelity, like you said, is to look at that pattern, is also to look at what are you running from? Because maybe that's your issue, that you're running from, looking at this and staying in it and facing what really needs to be addressed. So if we think that running or going to somebody else is going to make us happier, it never really does. It's just like any other kind of addictive disorder, right? We try to cover up the real feelings, and then eventually when we're in treatment, we realize why we had that maladaptive coping mechanism and what was underneath and what was the real issue that we actually acted that out. So then we have all of that work to do. So as Catholic women, I just want to mention too, because in the intro, I didn't mention this, but Dr. Cooperman is a strong practicing Catholic woman. And so I think that she is even speaking from the two schools of thought herself. So she is one of our faithful housewives with two children that she's raising into today's society. And that could be another topic for another show, on how we raise children in today's society with morals and ethics, and being able to have their own growth experience in a world that says this is the way you do it, against all of the ways of God. But that will be for another show and another time. So in order to talk to the audience today, do you feel, and we both can kind of talk about that, people are probably saying, couples are probably saying, well, this sounds great in theory, and this sounds great that having the Catholic perspective is a source of strength. But I wonder if anybody would be thinking, will I ever be healed of those traumas or those past experiences that I bring into the marriage? Can I have a healthy marriage in spite of the fact that I've been damaged and I have been in an abusive situation? Maybe you've been sexually abused in your prior life with your family, and now you're in a marriage bringing this all in. I think people feel like, I've been too damaged. I don't think I'm worthy of love. I don't think I have the right tools in order to keep a marriage because I didn't learn them. So I would like to hear what you think about that. Can treatment really help the patient become healthy and stabilized and be able to then have interpersonal relationships that are healthy? And I just like to see what your thought is.
Well, that's what psychotherapy is about, that you look at a trauma, you talk about it, there are different approaches to deal with trauma. There are workbooks, and to really, truly, when you do therapy and really address the trauma or the dysfunctional marital patterns that you internalize from your parents, to really stop projecting onto others, but go within and find the strength to really face the inner demons and the pain and the sadness, and to cry and to talk and to pray and to meditate and really take care of yourself and heal that wound, is really what therapy is about. And sometimes people think, I can do this in 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Sometimes it takes a while, especially when there was a prolonged period of abuse. Give yourself some time to heal the wound and to really talk about it and to journal and to heal it in a gentle, deep way.
Well said, Dr. Cooperman. And I would really love to end with this note too, because the show is entitled Bringing Jesus to a Broken Heart. And I think that from the Catholic perspective, Jesus is the healer of the brokenhearted. He said that in his word. As clinicians, we're clinicians. We really can't heal anyone. We have the training and we have the skills to help the client to recover. But I believe that the real healing, the healing that leaves no scars, is when Jesus gets in touch with your heart within and really heals those places and the memories in combination with therapy. And that's why, as Catholic clinicians, and this is for the Catholic Social Workers National Association, this is what our whole objective is to bring the faith with the practice, to bring people who have been broken to be healed. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Cooperman, for coming, and I will just pass this on to you. If there's anything else you just want to mention, I would love that you would also close with your thoughts.
Well, what I want to point out is, when you get married in the Catholic Church and your marriage is blessed, when you go through this tough time in your marriage, just to know that the relationship is blessed and there is Jesus is looking out for you. It's sometimes just knowing that it makes it easier to make it through a prolonged period of stress and sadness, and know you're not alone in this, and that there is a difference whether you're just dating somebody or you have a blessed union. And there's this real infusion of strength that I feel when I reconnect always to this issue, that the union is blessed and therefore should work. There's no reason why marriage can't work out. So that's how I want to close.
I think I have to add one more thing to that. Because I used to have a little phrase, God does not bless what he does not ordain. So if he ordained marriage and it's under the covenant of marriage, then he's in it. And I'm not saying, and I'm not being judgmental to anyone who is not under that covenant, because that's not what we're talking about here. There's no judgment. But what I'm saying is that for the Catholic perspective, that's the belief system, that you have brought Jesus into it, and then he is a major part of the marriage, active to oversee it. And I think that I just, when I heard you say that about the blessed, I really feel that that is the major component of what we talked about here, is that it is blessed. So I would just ask everyone, if you have a marriage that's struggling, please contact us. We would be happy as Catholic social workers to connect you with even some outside resources that are Catholic, such as retreats, marriage encounters, or anything that can help enrich your marriage. Please feel free to contact us. And also, we want to thank Dr. Cooperman again for coming, because she's such a blessing. And we're going to have her come back again, speaking about raising families into today's society. Please stay tuned, and thank you again for listening. God bless you.